What's up, everybody? How y'all doing tonight on this beautiful Wednesday evening? I know it's 8:30. I was supposed to come on at 8 o'clock, but better late than never. And, yeah, it's been it's hot. We going through a heat wave out here, so it's burning up. Had to go through, but a lot been going on. We gonna talk about on our hot topics tonight and our true stories, no glories. We're going to talk about what's going on with the president and all his back and forth with CNN, NBC, and how they putting out their narratives of what's going on. Whether it's true or not, they don't care. They only putting out bits and pieces of the story, so we're going to dig deep into that. We also going to talk about what's going on with Sean Combs, aka Diddy, aka Love, aka or formerly known as Puff Daddy or Puffy, or the man of many names. Freaky Deaky should be the number one that we talk about, because that boy is weird, and right now they trying to convict him on being a weirdo. It don't seem like they convicted him on actual factual stuff, just being a weirdo and a freak. But we'll get into that. We'll go round and round, back and forth. Depends on the chat and how y'all wanna play it. But let me pop out the other chat, that way I can be informed. But let's take it back to how we got here. Talk about these missiles and shit.
Americans who want to leave Israel. Again today, Israel and Iran traded strikes amid rising tensions. CBS's Deborah Pata is in Tel Aviv with more. Deborah.
Good evening. It's mission accomplished for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who thanked President Trump today.
Your bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history.
2 hours later, Iran retaliated with a barrage of at least 30 ballistic missiles. Not all of them were intercepted. In Haifa, there were no warning sirens before a missile slammed into this building, reducing it to rubble. And in central Tel Aviv, the blast devastated a huge residential neighborhood. The scene has been cordoned off after a direct hit from Iran's retaliatory strike, some of the worst damage in this area. All that remains of this building are the hollowed-out shells of the apartments people once lived in. Houses across the street were also destroyed. There were no fatalities, as most residents had fled to the bomb shelters.
I was about to say, the way that devastation looked, to say it's no fatalities, man. It had to be empty. But all right, that's good to know, and not that innocent people had to die in this. But this is wild. We lucky over here in America that we ain't gotta run and hide and run the bomb shelters. A lot of people don't understand when it used to be like that in the 50s. When they had the Cold War, and a lot of buildings had bomb shelters and shit. But let's get back to it.
Talia Porat was shocked when she returned home.
We found out that the apartment was destroyed. All the windows fell down. Everything is broken glasses.
Israel pounded Iran again today, and amongst Israelis, there is both elation and fear over what comes next.
Go for it, Trump. Thanks for helping us. Thanks for being next to us.
We hope very much that it won't escalate.
I think it will end the war. This is my hope. Maybe it is wishful thinking.
Tonight, Israel's senior military leaders warned, although they'd reached a turning point in the war, Jerika, it was not over yet.
Deborah Pata in Tel Aviv. We appreciate that.
I was just before we get into the main topic, just to show how we got here before the ceasefire. So when you see that they're saying that it wasn't worth it, that you get to see why it's worth it, because it's actually did save many innocent lives, you know. Let's go.
All right, ICE arresting 16 Iranian nationals since Sunday across 11 states, including one who is accused of serving as a sniper for the Iranian army.
And two men accused of trying to assassinate President Trump on behalf of Iran appeared in court yesterday ahead of their trials. Both are charged with murder for hire.
Former DHS Secretary Jay Johnson joins us now. I think, Mr. Secretary, thanks so much for joining the program. This is just another account of the failed Biden border policies that we have to deal with right now, right?
I put it this way, Lawrence. The presence in this country of undocumented migrants or Iranian nationals who have links to Hezbollah, IRGC, is, in my judgment, a domestic law enforcement concern of the highest magnitude. I hope and expect that the FBI, my old department, DHS, are laser focused on this right now. There have been the 16 arrests in the last couple of days, but that's not necessarily all of them. My educated speculation is that law enforcement has been tracking these individuals for a while in this country to follow leads, to see who they are in contact with. But I'm glad to see these 16 off the streets.
Talk about the work that goes into finding these individuals, because there are people here on the terror watch list. How do they go about finding them? Because some of these were found in all over the United States: Alabama, Mississippi, Missouri, Texas, New York, Maryland, Colorado, California, Arizona.
If the process is working the way it should, this should be an international cooperative effort. I can't tell you the number of times we got a tip from a foreign intelligence agency about someone in another hemisphere trying to make their way to this hemisphere that were interdicted long before they could reach U.S. soil. Our law enforcement capability is really impressive, and we need to stay focused on this. And my overall message to those who are listening is our law enforcement capability, our counterterrorism capability in this country is first rate. Our government should lay out all the things that they are doing to protect the American people. But the public, as we approach a holiday week, the public should not be discouraged going to public events. And the public has a role to play too. If you see something, say something is still a valid public safety tool, and it does make a difference.
I love the fact that the FBI quickly moved on Iranian illegals here because of the sleeper cell worry, and that president evidently was told at the G7 from some of our allies that look out for sleeper cells that are ready to be activated here in the U.S., and it's got to be a concern.
Sleepers don't necessarily follow the direction from their sponsors. Somebody who's here in the United States who has links to the IRGC, to Hezbollah, may decide to take matters into their own hands.
So, Mr. Secretary, I want to get your comments on this vice mayor. What is that city called?
It's called Cudahy. It's in California.
Her name is Cynthia.
Yeah, with everything going on with finding sleeper cells and everything, I do feel that we should be putting our focus on that right now and fighting terrorists. But we are focusing on fighting against each other right now with different policies from different. What up, Ozzy? What's good, man? Yeah, that shit is crazy how they supporting none of this shit. YouTube is blocking your comments. I didn't even, this the only 2 comments I seen from you so far. But what's up? Welcome back to the chat, you know. Glad to see you up in here. You know, I ain't blocking nobody. But I definitely can see, like she going to point out, because we got officials trying to recruit gangs to fight against ICE. And I heard a lot of things, and I don't agree with a lot of things, but to sit out there and send out civilians to fight against ICE, that's bad. And they're about to get into that right now. and stuff. But for all y'all in here, the few that's here, I know we just started. Hit the like button, show some support. It don't cost you nothing to hit that button, but it's greatly appreciated. And if you new, consider subbing. We talk about hot topics.
Gonzalez, this is what she posted on social media.
Yeah, but I ain't
she got a
surprised.
knock on the door from the FBI.
I told you
Watch.
YouTube been like hitting my joint.
These are all about territory, and this is 18th Street, and this is Florencia. You guys tag everything up, claiming hood. And now that your hood's being invaded by the biggest gang there is, there ain't a peep out of you. It's everyone else who's not about the gang life that's out there protesting and speaking up. We're out there like fighting our turf, protecting our people. And like, where you at?
Telling the gangs to get ready to take on ICE.
Yeah. That comment is inappropriate, whether you're the vice mayor of her city or LA or New York or Poughkeepsie, New York. That's an inappropriate comment. And let me add this. What I used to tell people at ICE when I was secretary, Tom Homan included, was when you're out on the streets doing your job, use common sense, because one notorious incident can turbocharge a sanctuary city movement, like we're seeing right now across this country. The ideal situation is where local law enforcement is working effectively with ICE to find these people in pretrial detention, find these people as their sentences end and they're about to be released, put detainers on them, and deport the criminals.
But
And
they're
to
not
do that,
cooperating now, Mr. Secretary. Back then, you actually deported more people.
3 million.
they're not cooperating, and that's
they
that's
didn't
a problem.
show up the way that they show up now.
Yeah.
I mean, they're doxing these agents. They're surrounding them.
That's crazy that they doxing them. They trying, but I do know people who that I know that got deported years ago, back when President Obama was in office, where they let them do their jail time out, and then as soon as they parole or got released, they took them straight to Homeland Security, put them on a plane, send them back to their country, and this was right into the Caribbeans. This ain't even sending them to like Mexico or anything. This was the Caribbeans that they was taking their time out and making sure that they went back. So it's crazy that now trying to unite the gangs that ought to start a war that will end bad and a lot of bloodshed and innocent people that probably ain't even got nothing to do with it, because they're gonna start racial profiling and grabbing up people just because they look or in that area. I mean, LAPD already do that with their gang injunctions and shit.
I can just imagine what would you do in this situation when your cops were surrounded
in sanctuary cities?
I personally would talk to the mayor of New York, the mayor of Philadelphia, and the mayor of dozens of other cities to say, you have to work with us. Don't wait for there to be a tragic incident in your city before you decide you need to work with ICE. Let's make this relationship work now.
So DHS commented on that video. She did end up taking that video down. The comments made by the vice mayor of Cudahy, California, Cynthia Gonzalez, are despicable. This kind of garbage has led to a more than 500% increase in assaults against our ICE law enforcement officers. And then the city of Cudahy released this statement. The comments made by the vice mayor reflect her personal views and do not represent the views or official position of the city of Cudahy. The city will be providing no further comment. What does law enforcement do? They went to her house. They're investigating. What should happen?
Well, first of all, when you're a vice mayor of a city, or when you're Secretary of Homeland Security or any other public position, you have very little space for your personal views hearing publicly. She said it, and it was not a good comment. I would counsel our immigration enforcement personnel, when they're out in the streets doing their job, looking for undocumented, specifically the criminals, to use common sense in these communities, which are very often blue communities that start off from a position where they don't want to work with ICE. My advice is you have to use your common sense.
Mr. Secretary, you've been on this couch. You've been very upset about what's happening on the border. You've also been complimentary. Have you ever in your life heard about numbers as low as we've been hearing since President Trump took over?
No.
And do you believe he deserves credit for that and the Tom Homan team?
The numbers now are something like, last time I looked, 12,000 a month. The prior administration sometimes saw that in a day.
Wow.
If President Trump said, I've secured the border, that would be a legitimate statement to make, because the numbers now are the lowest in recorded history. Now, let me take that a step further.
Real quick.
I think this president has an opportunity, looking at him in the face right now, and a lot of people won't want to hear this, comprehensive immigration reform. Just like, a Nixon goes to China moment, or a Reagan discusses with the Soviet Union arms control. He is in a position to bring along a lot of Republicans and Democrats at some point before the midterms at an effort at comprehensive immigration reform to fix
We'll have
the
you
broken
back
system.
to talk about that.
Yeah,
Mr.
and he should
Secretary.
call you, because I know Tom Homan also has great respect for you. Thanks
you
a lot,
so
Mr.
much,
Secretary.
Mr. Secretary.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley.
First video that we got.
I want to buy your house. I can pay you cash for your house no matter what condition it's in. If you need to sell your house for any reason, click the...
All right, welcome back and Alive Now. I'm Austin Westfall. A live look at the U.S. Capitol, about 10:45 in the nation's capital, 7:45 out west. Let's cover an interesting story that we heard about today. But over the weekend, ICE agents saying they arrested 11 Iranian foreign nationals in 48 hours. That's according to the Department of Homeland Security. Learning more about this from our partners in Minneapolis, because one of those arrests was made there. Let's get the latest from them in this quick report.
The Department of Homeland Security says U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrested 11 Iranian nationals in a 48-hour targeted operation. The arrests spanned multiple states. Here's what we know about the man who was taken into custody in Minnesota. DHS officials say ICE arrested 56-year-old Iranian national Mehran Makari Saheli on Sunday in St. Paul. DHS says he's a former member of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and says he has, quote, admitted connections to Hezbollah, which are U.S. designated foreign terrorist organizations. According to court documents, Saheli was convicted of possessing a fraudulent immigration document in 2009. Then, stemming from that in 2020, court filings show he faced a federal charge for being a felon in possession of a firearm. DHS says he was later sentenced to 15 months in prison for the weapons charge. Federal officials say in June 2022, an immigration judge ordered Saheli be removed from the United States, but say he remained in the country illegally.
Okay, so as they mentioned, 11 total arrested. We've got pictures of 10 of them here via the New York Post. Standing by, we want to welcome in Michael Balboni. He's a former New York Homeland Security advisor. I got to ask you, when we look at pictures of these 10 people, Michael, are these people affiliated with those so-called sleeper cells that we've been hearing so much about? Is this sleeper cell activity or not? What do we know?
What we know is that over the last couple of years, we've had almost over 10 million individuals come to this country, and we don't know who they are, where they are, what their intentions are. That's really what has changed the landscape of this nation's security, and we see it right now. This follows a traditional pattern of whenever there's conflict in the Middle East, it spans out to other parts of the world. And of course, with Iran having been attacked by the United States to take out their nuclear facilities, this has ratcheted up the rhetoric at the very least. But we also know that there's really good intel that says there's a great capability in country right now, should the either Iranian affiliated individuals or folks that want to do things on their own, rogue individuals. And certainly from a cybersecurity perspective, the security forces in the United States are really on high alert for a domestic incident.
Viewers often ask me about the threat of sleeper cells. Two things on that. What are they, is one. Yeah. And secondly, is there any evidence of Iranian sleeper cells in the U.S.? Hard evidence?
So typically, if you take a look at throughout the years from an intelligence perspective, during the Cold War, was when the country was first introduced to the concept of a sleeper cell. That was people who were trained in the ways and customs of the United States. They were sent in to create false identities and families, and then hide amongst us, and then get a note that says, "Okay, time to go." And then they would either create havoc, or they would try to get documents, secrets. That has now changed in the sense that there's an affiliation with the sponsoring agency, or in this case, Iran, where people come into the country. They go to areas where there's a lot of other Arab, in an Arab community, where they kind of go to ground and mix in. And this is, when you listen to what President Trump has been talking about, he's been using ICE to target not just folks that were here illegally, but folks that are members of gangs, have committed crimes, and pose a security risk. And so this is something that the White House has been very focused on, though a lot of people are not saying that he should get credit for doing this. But again, think of 10 million people coming to this country. It's a
one thing that stands out to me, they say they don't know the numbers, and then they give you numbers to justify this. That sounds kind of strange. Either you don't know or you know. So that's strange to me. That I feel like either you don't know or you know. Make up your mind. But I do think we do got like sleeper cells over here and individuals that's gaining just information on our country and our infrastructure. Even though a lot of the stuff, they don't even got to go nowhere. They could just log on to social media and get everything they need. Or get on the right path, just like law enforcement is doing now.
It's a huge security risk.
You've already touched on this, but I'm hoping you can expand. What are the challenges associated with tracking down, finding even sleeper cells? How do you A, find it, B, how do you track?
Well, they dropped some of Diddy's.
Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking and racketeering trial.
The federal prosecutors are no longer including attempted kidnapping and attempted arson. They're underlying crimes in the alleged racketeering conspiracy charge.
Well, that's right, and this development comes with closing arguments set to begin later this week. ABC's Aaron Katersky joins us live outside the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Aaron, can you put this development into context for us? Is this in any way a blow to the prosecution?
Well, it could be, Tanya, but not necessarily. Up until now, federal prosecutors said that attempted arson of Kid Cudi's Porsche was one of the underlying crimes underpinning the racketeering conspiracy. We'll back up for a second. In order to find Sean Combs guilty of racketeering conspiracy, the jury must find that he conspired to commit some other offenses. And until today, prosecutors said one of those was attempted arson. They showed the jury pictures.
That boy Diddy looking bad, man. I know it's a sketch, but they got that boy looking bad. He done lost weight. Hair is white as snow. But let's get back to this. But damn, he looking bad.
Of Kid Cudi's torched out Porsche. And he even testified, saying that he saw the Molotov cocktail that was responsible, the charred interior, his blackened sports car, and the implication was that Sean Combs was behind it, but there was never direct evidence tying Combs to the arson. So prosecutors signaled in a letter to the judge that they would no longer proceed under the theory that Combs conspired to commit attempted arson. One of the other underlying crimes, the so-called predicate acts.
They had to concede because they know they ain't have no evidence of that. And they feel like all they wanted to do was kill that man image. They put all this stuff out that he done bombed cars, done did XYZ. They go through the whole trial, hear testimonies, then right before deliberations, you like, yeah, he ain't do it. He good. That's some bullshit. That sound like deception and just raw misuse of the law.
Involved attempted kidnapping of Capricorn Clark, a former assistant to Sean Combs. prosecutors are no longer going to proceed under that theory either. Instead, they're emphasizing other crimes that they say Combs conspired to commit, like sex trafficking, like forced labor, and they're going to emphasize those things when they speak to the jury during summations starting on Thursday.
All right, Aaron Katersky, thank you so much for putting that into perspective for us. We really appreciate it. Again, with closing arguments and jury deliberations set to begin in the coming days, more breaking updates are sure to follow. The best way to stay on top of all of this is by downloading the ABC7NY app.
Back to Molly and Preston. Bellevue police say this all started out as a routine patrol call where a couple of officers thought something didn't quite look right. That led to prosecutors saying they were able to take down a vicious pimp who was abusing a woman and selling her for sex work while keeping the money for himself.
So trying to tell me leave alone?
On social media,
It's trying to tell me leave money alone.
Cedric Dorsey painted himself as a pimp.
Why I'm a pimp?
With money.
I told you, they don't even gotta leave their office. They could do all their investigation right from their damn seat of their chair because of these fools all over social media. Lock his ass up.
Swagger and influence.
SCCC 333.
But investigators say his lifestyle was built by forced sex work, as Dorsey trafficked a woman into prostitution in Seattle, Bellevue, Kent, and Las Vegas. It all came undone in 2024 when Bellevue police responded to a domestic violence call involving Dorsey and his victim.
They listened to what that victim was telling them and realized things weren't just adding up for her and what she was saying, and that she was in a very dangerous situation.
Bellevue Police Major Ellen Inman says patrol officers noticed signs of trafficking and called detectives.
When you ask them questions, they're answering repeatedly in these kind of scripted or answers that sound like they're rehearsed. When they served the search warrant on his premise, they recovered $12,000 in cash, along with those 3 firearms, one of which was stolen.
I could see the firearms and shit, but $12,000 ain't a lot of money. I don't know why they act like this boy's making millions. $12,000 ain't no money.
And a banned firearm.
King County prosecutors hit Dorsey with charges of human trafficking, promoting prostitution, and unlawful possession of a firearm.
We see very significant.
That's the same shit they hitting Diddy with, right?
Violence, strangulation, beatings, assaults.
Prosecutor Brayla McGinnis tried Dorsey's case where his own social media posts were used as evidence, including this one about the 304 oath, where prostitutes promise not to cooperate with police and say they aren't victims.
One of the biggest rules of the game is not to talk to police. It is that idea of selling the dream, right? Saying, I have these nice things. If you come with me, you can have all of this, right? And when you're talking to someone who has had a very rough upbringing or a very troubled life, that's the vulnerability that they exploit.
That's the way I look at social media and the use of different ways that people advertise their criminal activity, is that if you make it available for the Bellevue Police Department in this case to access and use as part of our lawful investigation, then that's what we will do.
After being found guilty at trial this spring, Dorsey is now starting a 35-year prison sentence.
We were able to take a very dangerous criminal off the street and hold him accountable for his actions.
Don't pay, hit that like button.
Now, local and state officials have been really trying to get a handle on this issue of illegal sex work, and one of the proposals...
Keep it a buck, though. Like, he got what his hand called for, bro. You out here doing dirt like that, that's a fucking nasty, nasty crime. So he got what his hand called for. I don't got no sympathy for him, Not at all, man. Not at all. He got exactly what his hand called for. That was somebody's daughter, somebody's sister, that was somebody's child, period. So somebody's, because it probably was multiple women or children, whoever. We ain't get all them details, but, nasty work.
Supported by the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office was a bill earlier this year in the legislature that would have increased the
years to do. In this video, we have breaking news, starting with President Trump continuing to go at war with.
I said, we started off talking about how CNN is going crazy, and big fan of Mr. Dorkin, so we're gonna read the app and play his content and let it be known. Go over to his channel strive. Like I said, I found this young man on Rumble, and I've been a fan ever since. Let's go.
CNN, they're not backing down. Secondly, DHS and FBI are continuing to track down Iranian hit squads. And finally, an official out of Los Angeles is encouraging local gangs to go against ICE agents. We're going to show you all of this and then give you the bottom line.
They took bits and pieces from a leaked top secret intelligence report. And by the way, I understand the FBI is investigating who was the source of that leak because it's an illegal leak to CNN. And this is the same fake news CNN reporter who wrote the story alleging that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation, which we know is one of the greatest political hoaxes this country and the American public have ever seen. And that CNN story does not change the facts. There was a total and complete obliteration of Iran's nuclear facilities. And because of the president's strike, because of the precision of our United States military and this perfectly executed mission, Iran no longer has the capability to produce a nuclear weapon as imminently as they did prior to the strike. The American people and the world should be grateful for that, and it's disgusting that CNN and the New York Times are disparaging not just the president, but our brave men and women who helped conduct this highly successful operation.
And what kind of consequence could the leaker face?
They should go to jail.
All right. He's saying it lightly, saying they should go to jail. But if you are leaking top secret reports, that means that you some type of official, some type of military personnel. You could be civilian. We take an oath to work these jobs. So you broke that oath. That's treason, and that goes against national security. So they know who had access to them documents. So whether they leak some of it or part of it, they will face the full consequences of that. I bet that's one thing for sure.
All right, that was the White House press secretary, and we're picking up where we left off yesterday. But the issue today is leaking top secret information and why CNN should be held accountable for reporting on it, especially when they don't even provide a copy of the report to the public. Why report on a?
Yeah, that's an issue of national security, and CNN, even some of the charges in the Diddy case had to be dropped. Or they couldn't use because they saying CNN doctored the tapes that they put out of Sean Combs last year when they showed him doing that horrific shit to Cassie.
Story if you can't even show proof of the story. That's number one. Number two, the person who leaked the information, no question, should be held accountable. And number three, which is really troubling here, they only receive bits and pieces of this report. So how are you going to run a story if you don't even have the full picture, especially a story that undermines the decision-making from the president of the United States by claiming that the strikes against Iran were ineffective? Now, here's what the president had to say earlier today at the NATO summit while speaking in the Netherlands. Take a listen.
A letter just came in, and a statement came in from the Atomic Energy Commission of Israel. And I just wondered, this is an official letter, and they're very serious people, as you know. The devastating U.S. strike on Fordo destroyed the site's critical infrastructure and rendered the enrichment facility totally inoperable. It was devastated. We assess that the American strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities has set back Iran's ability to develop nuclear weapons for many years to come. This achievement can continue indefinitely if Iran does not get access to nuclear material, which it won't. It's so sad that whole thing had to go. But I just want to thank our pilots. You know, they were maligned and treated very bad, demeaned by fake news CNN, which is back there, believe it or not, wasting time, nobody's watching them. So they're just wasting a lot of time, wasting my time.
Yeah, so that was the president sharing his supporting.
You can say what you want to say, but that boy will speak his mind no matter where he at. I don't even know if he can even comprehend not to say certain things because he called him out in the middle of it. But let's go.
Documentation on why he believes these sites were obliterated. And so my question for CNN, why don't you release your supporting documentation? And because they refused to do that, that led to this post from the president just earlier today. He said, Natasha should be fired from CNN. I watched her for 3 days doing fake news. She should be immediately reprimanded and then thrown out like a dog. She lied on the laptop from hell story, and now she lied on the nuclear site story, attempting to destroy our Patriot pilots by making them look bad when in fact they did a great job and hit pay dirt. Total obliteration. She should not be allowed to work at fake news CNN. It's people like her who destroy the reputation of a once great network. Her slant was so obviously negative. Besides, she doesn't have what it takes to be an on-camera correspondent, not even close. Fire Natasha. And on a more serious note, not only is the FBI investigating this leak, but the White House is starting to pick and choose what classified information they're going to share with Congress.
That makes sense, because if your ties to your party line goes against the best interests of the American public, you actually giving him all the resources he need not to give y'all the information that you crying over, because you so busy being loyal to your feelings than loyal to the country. You ain't gotta like the man. He's in the position. It's your job to support and do what's best for the country, not what's best for your own personal gain.
Because they are convinced that the leak has been influenced by people in Congress or came from people in Congress. Take a listen.
We've got some breaking news here. This comes from our producer, Pat Ward, on Capitol Hill. A White House official confirms to Fox that the Trump administration plans to limit sharing classified information with Congress after someone leaked that internal assessment of Saturday's bombings of Iran's nuclear facilities. The suggestion, I mean, if you were to read between the lines there, is that the leak came from Congress. What do you think about the White House limiting the sharing of classified information with members of Congress?
Well, I think those who are on the intelligence, national security related committees like myself should have access to classified information. We are the policy makers. So for us to make a wise decision, we need access to that material. I don't know who leaked this. Whoever did should be prosecuted to the fullest extent. I think it's always treason when you leak classified information like what was done. But I do think Article 1, separate, equal branch of government, we will have access to classified information. I understand the president's frustration here completely. And I understand why he's angry about this. It should never have happened. And it was a low confidence DIA report to begin with. That means there's low confidence in the assessment that you've now heard about. So anyway, I hope the leaker is caught. I don't think it was a member, but if it was, they should be held accountable.
All right, now before we move any further, please, if you guys have been getting value from our channel, like, share, and subscribe. If you want to support us further, you could go to the links in the description below, buy us a cup of coffee, or shop our merch store where we have 2 new designs for you, starting with the I Support ICE t-shirt and also the Marlboro MAGA, the report. I mean, unless Congress does a full out.
I like his stuff, but I ain't wearing no MAGA hat. I keep it a buck. I fuck with my Yankee. I fuck with my Knicks. I fuck with all that, but I ain't wearing that. You know?
Once the leaker caught, I'm sure the leaker won't be caught because you tell me the last time a leaker was caught. I mean, let's be real. That's number one. Number two, CNN is not going to reveal who gave them the report, who read the report. I mean, unless Congress does a full out investigation and a hearing and issues a subpoena to CNN, I don't think we're ever going to get to the bottom of it. Now, more importantly here, CNN did fire back at the president, particularly Dana Bash. Here's what she had to say about the president's comments. Take a listen.
Number one, because Kelly O'Donnell did a great job trying to get information out of the president in the face of sort of some personal attacks on her and the rest of us. But much more importantly, this was not anything to do with the U.S. military or their abilities or their, patriotism, anything at all. This was a report on an initial assessment by one intelligence agency, full stop. And as you said, the president didn't like it, but it has nothing to do with the men and women of the U.S. military. And that was a tell. The fact that he keeps harping on that and is trying to manipulate the conversation to make it like the reporters who are reporting on something that part of the U.S. government is trying to figure out has to do with not liking the military, which is.
She's stumbling over her words because she know we all know that the president didn't go fly those aircrafts. He didn't come up with these strategies. He just gave the approval. So for her to bad mouth the plan of action for those bombings, for those sites, and try to undermine it just to make him look bad, you are down in the military, because like I said, it was the military and the Joint Chiefs of Staffs that came up with the plan, and our intelligence communities that came out and said, hey, this is what the dangers is, this is what we need to act. And what country gonna say, yeah, they kicked our ass? They ain't trying to look bad for the rest of the world. They don't want to look vulnerable.
Is just ridiculous on its face. Yeah.
Okay, so let's walk that dog then. Let's just say President Trump is responding this way to control the narrative. At the end of the day, CNN, you're coming from a place of weakness. You're reporting on a leaked top secret report that you only have bits and pieces of, and you didn't even post the supporting documentation of that report to prove your claim. So we're just supposed to take your word for it, like we were supposed to take your word for the Hunter Biden laptop story. We were supposed to take your word on who should be taking the COVID vaccine. We can go on and on and on. And this is exactly the problem with the media. The problem with the media is they say they want the responsibility to be the arbiters of truth. But when it comes down to it, they lie straight to your face. And I'm going to show you an example of that. Take a look at this clip from Erin Burnett on June 19th, where she claims that Iran is years away from developing a nuclear weapon. And then on June 24th, she says Iran is only months away.
This timeline of Iran being a few weeks away from a nuclear bomb is in direct contradiction to CNN's reporting. According to U.S. intelligence assessments, Iran is 3 years away from being able to produce a nuclear weapon if they wanted to. So the facts on Iran getting a nuclear weapon do not bear out the claim at the heart of what has put the world on the verge of world war. It only set back the Iranian nuclear program by months. We got to call it like it is. It's a big deal.
Okay, let me make sure you understand exactly what she said. On June 9th.
Whoa, before you get there, let me tell you, it's crazy. So a week ago, give or take, they didn't have, the capability. Well, they had the capabilities that they can make a bomb. We go do our thing, right? Now y'all saying they only set back a couple of months, but a week ago, before America attacked those sites, they was 3 years out. They get attacked and somehow it pushed their shit up. And now they, you know what I mean? Now all of a sudden it's a couple of months. So you get bombed. That's like somebody breaking down your house. And then, I don't know, like she makes no sense. But let's hear him out. Yeah, Cooper Anderson is a problem. They push agendas on mainstream media. That's the problem, that they keep pushing narratives and agenda, and they think the regular, everyday American people is stupid.
19th, CNN claims, according to their reporting, that Iran is only 3 years away from developing nuclear weapons. So on June 24th, after the military airstrikes, now they claim that Iran is only weeks away, if not months. You see how that works, ladies and gentlemen? This is why you have to do your own research and don't listen to these people. It's insanity. Now, here's President Trump going at it with Caitlin Collins. Take a listen.
Please, go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, fake news, CNN? Oh, yeah. Here we go. Wait till you hear this question.
Thank you, sir.
You should really say how great our soldiers and our warriors are.
I think everyone appreciates our soldiers and our warriors. I do have two questions for you, Mr.
Then say it. Show us the appreciation. Don't talk about you think everybody's in. Everybody don't think that way. It's a lot of people that's against that. So don't say you think everybody is. Everybody don't support the military. A lot of people don't support the military.
Mr. President, you just cited Israeli intelligence on these attacks. Earlier, you said U.S. intelligence was inconclusive. Are you relying on Israeli intelligence for your assessment of the impact of the strikes?
No, this is also Iran made the statement. And it's also, if you read the document that was given, that Pete can talk about if you'd like, the document said it could be very severe damage, but they didn't take that. They said it could be limited or it could be very severe. They really didn't know, other than to say it could be limited or it could be very, very severe. And you didn't choose to put that because it was very early after. Since then, we've collected additional intelligence. We've also spoken to people who have seen the site, and the site is obliterated. And we think everything nuclear is down there. They didn't take it out.
Okay, so number one, I don't have an issue with Caitlin Collins asking the president that question. I think those are the type of questions I would like answers to, because it is very important to make sure the American people gets the information they need to feel confident that these sites were obliterated. I don't have any problem with that. And number two, we should be recognizing military soldiers. So going back to what Dana Bash had to say, you guys barely even brought up the military. And when you did, you questioned the accuracy. So yeah, the President Trump is going to hit back twice as hard. No question. Now, Tulsi Gabbard finally made a huge statement that I think is...
That's what I'm saying. No president is sitting out there going on the ground, checking assets, coming up with these strategic plans. It's people in place for all of that. They come brief him, they give him the plans, and then from there they act on what's in the best interest. That's why you got generals. That's why you got the Joint Chief of Staff. So she's just talking on her ass. And then all reality, national security, we're not going to tell them our intelligent community and what we use. We will tell you what they're saying from other communities just to keep them, you know what I mean? Like you keep your hands close to, keep the deck, your cards close to your chest. None of that, just running off telling your whole playbook.
It's worth reading. She said this: new intelligence confirms what the president has stated numerous times. Iran's nuclear facilities have been destroyed. If the Iranians chose to rebuild, they would have to rebuild all 3 facilities entirely, which would likely take years to do. The propaganda media has deployed their usual tactics, selectively releasing portions of illegally leaked classified intelligence assessments to try to undermine President Trump's decisive leadership and the brave servicemen and women who flawlessly executed a truly historic mission to keep the American people safe and secure. And so that takes us to this other underlining story in regards to this overarching theme about Iran is the Iranian nationals who are currently in our country. Some of them are definitely undocumented. Some of them probably crossed the border illegally, and they're plotting to assassinate the president of the United States. And of course, the only network really following this happens to be Fox News. Here they are talking about that. Take a listen.
17 illegal Iranians arrested since Sunday. The targeted operations taking place in major cities across Texas, New York, California, Alabama, Arizona, and Mississippi. In Mississippi, check this one out. This Iranian national arrested after ICE says the U.S. government terminated his residency back in 2017 after lying on his visa application and committing potential marriage fraud. In February, he was listed as a known suspected terrorist. He's now in ICE custody pending removal proceedings. Then you have this in Minnesota. ICE arrested this 56-year-old Iranian national convicted of being a felon in possession of a gun. He's a former member of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and admitted connections to Hezbollah. An immigration judge ordered him removed in 2022 under the Biden administration, but he illegally stayed in the U.S. until now. These are the people, though, whose backgrounds we know about. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons says the concern is those who weren't properly vetted, along with those 2 million gotaways under the Biden administration who just slipped across the border.
Okay, what stands out to me is how long a lot of these individuals have been in our country for quite some time. Now, one of the pushbacks from Democrats.
I want to know how I was able to stay here if you deported him. That don't make no sense.
They'll say, well, President Trump, why didn't you do anything in your first administration? Well, let's just be real. He didn't have the experience he has now. Okay, that's number one. He definitely didn't appoint the right.
So I will say that. I mean, he didn't have the experience. That's like with any one of us. If you do something and you ain't know what the hell you was doing, then you get a second chance at it. You either gonna do better at it or even do a little worse. But he know where to look to find the secrets at the second go around, though.
People to his cabinet. That's number two. And number three, when it comes to public support, it's at an all-time high to get these people out of our country. No question. In fact, it's so important that even a former Obama DHS secretary, he was on Fox News this morning sounding the alarm on this very issue. Take a listen.
I think, Mr. Secretary, thanks so much for joining the program. This is just another account of the failed Biden border policies that we have to deal with right now, right?
I put it this way, Lawrence. The presence in this country of undocumented migrants or Iranian nationals who have links to Hezbollah, IRGC is in my judgment, a domestic law enforcement concern of the highest magnitude. I hope and expect that the FBI, my old department, DHS, are laser focused on this right now. There have been the 16 arrests in the last couple of days, but that's not necessarily all of them. My educated speculation is that law enforcement has been tracking these individuals for a while in this country to follow leads, to see who they are in contact with. But I'm glad to see these 16 off the streets.
Now imagine that. A Democrat served under former President Obama, was a DHS secretary, and he sounds like he's a conservative on this issue. It's fascinating what Trump derangement syndrome will do to people. I can't for the life of me understand why Democrats still, after everything that's happened up to this point, refuse to get on board, especially with people who are considered to be national security threats, not only to our neighborhoods, our communities, but even to the president of the United States, all in the name of playing politics, all in the name of scoring political points, all in the name of playing the position of being contrarians instead of being problem solvers. Now, here is the acting ICE director, Todd Lyons, and what he had to say.
You know, we do have a list of several high-profile countries that are considered high risk that we are focused on, that we want to go ahead and make sure we find those individuals that came here in the United States without any type of vetting or without any proper vetting or who snuck in. We want to make sure that we're protecting Americans here on American soil. And that's one of the key things ICE is doing, is preventing these incidents before anything bad does happen.
And that's a big criticism of the United States of America, how lenient we are with our borders in comparison to other countries out there. And we see what happens when you allow illegal immigration to take place in a country. Now, what's more disturbing, in my opinion, is not necessarily the Iranian hit squads, because I truly believe the FBI will take care of it. It's elected officials who are now encouraging local gangs to go after ICE officials if they enter their neighborhoods. This is an astonishing story. Take a listen.
Federal agents
covered this, but I want to give another point of view.
had their eyes on a Southern California official after a video surfaced of the Cudahy vice mayor appearing to urge gangs to defend their turf against ICE agents. Cynthia Gonzalez says she is simply exercising her right to free speech. Listen.
You guys are all about territory, and this is 18th Street, and this is Florencia. You guys tag everything up, claiming hood. And now that your hood's being invaded by the biggest gang there is, there ain't a peep out of you.
Fox News has reached out to Cynthia Gonzalez for comment, have not heard back as of now. Let's bring in former LA County Sheriff Alex Villanueva. He joins me now. Alex, take a listen to this. This is more of what the vice mayor posted in that video that she's now taken down.
So don't be trying to claim no block, no nothing. If you're not showing up right now, trying to like help out and organize, I don't want to hear a peep out of you once they're gone, trying to claim that this is my block. This was not your block. You weren't even here helping out. So whoever's the leadership over there, just get your members in order.
All right, what's your take on?
Wow. The vice, what, mayor? Wow. That's crazy.
The video.
I mean, this is just morally reprehensible. I mean, you want to talk about leadership, and to think this individual is hired by UCLA in some kind of a principal leadership institute or something like that is bizarre, because she's actually advocating for violence against law enforcement from a position as an elected official, and the city right away is trying to distance themselves.
And here's what the Homeland Security had to say. The comments made by the vice mayor, Cynthia Gonzalez, are despicable. She calls for criminal gangs, including the vicious 18th Street gang, to commit violence against our brave ICE law enforcement. This kind of garbage has led to a more than 500% increase in assaults against our ICE law enforcement officers. Secretary Noem has been clear: if you assault a federal officer, you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Now, guys, I understand you don't like ICE, not you particularly, but these people. Do you honestly believe this is the solution to encourage gangs who already commit crimes in your neighborhood, who are a nuisance to our communities, to get involved and commit more crimes? How do you make sense of that exactly? And it's not just the controversial videos from this individual. It's also her social media post where she has one here on the screen: California will always be brown. Now, listen, I'm not trying to debate on what the color of California is, but I thought for the people who lead this state, it's all about diversity, right? It doesn't matter what your skin color is, right? I thought that's what the attitude was. So it's interesting that she's going on there and posting things like that and also creating videos like that because she does not want to be a part of the solution. This type of behavior needs to be called out from both sides of the political spectrum, full stop. Yeah, so here's the bottom line, ladies and gentlemen. When top secret information is leaked, there should be an immediate investigation to find who.
Should be a media investigation. It's treason to leak stuff for national security. So we know it's going to be hell to pay for that one way or another. And especially you giving it, they doing it so frequent and so easy.
Who did it and prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. Okay, that's number one. Number two, people should be calling out CNN for running with that story, and also the reporter who not only got a promotion, but CNN is aggressively defending who got it wrong with the Hunter Biden laptop story. She should be called out. And then when you get to what's happening with these Iranian hit squads, yeah, we need to keep our heads on a swivel and pray that the FBI will be able to do their job and neutralize the threat. And clearly they're facing that challenge when you have local officials encouraging gangs to get involved to go after ICE. I mean, this is chaos. But I want to hear from you in the comment section to what you believe about these stories. What is your assessment in regards to whether or not we were successful?
We think we're successful over there in getting a point across that we're not afraid to use force, to use military force to stop giving warnings. We went back and forth in negotiation for 61 days. And then he said within 2 weeks, he'll make a determination on what he's going to do. And it took him 2 days. So, yeah. But we know he's fed up with Iran, too. He's tired of them. I mean, not Iran. He's tired of Israel poking the bear with Iran. But that's what I had on the playlist. But your boy Diddy, he's in the news because the feds dropped a lot of the damning charges right before deliberations. So they're trying to figure out what they going to do as far as that.
Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Kristen Welker in Washington, where the White House has just issued a new timeline for President Trump's decision on possible U.S. military strikes on Iran's nuclear.
That's old news. That's yesterday news.
It's Verizon's Summer Bundle. All new and existing customers get iPhone 16 Pro, Apple Watch Series 10, and iPad. All three on us.
President Trump is on his way back to D.C. from the Netherlands after meeting with world leaders at the NATO summit. The conflict between Israel and Iran took center stage.
And today, the president doubled down on claims the U.S. totally obliterated Iran's nuclear program with the 3 bomber strikes over the weekend. But sources tell ABC News a preliminary Pentagon report indicates the bombings set the program back not years, but only months.
ABC's Perry Russum is live in Washington with the latest fallout. Perry.
President Trump says he does not see Iran getting into the nuclear business anymore. Comes as he is defending his attack, saying Iran's facilities were blown up to kingdom come. President Trump today adamant his attack against Iran obliterated their nuclear program.
It's blown up to kingdom come. The site has been demolished. The whole thing is collapsed in a disaster.
It comes as sources tell ABC News a preliminary Pentagon report indicates.
He probably is we already know that the president is known to exaggerate and just his choice of words all the time and some shit that sound like it's out of a comic book. So I wouldn't be surprised, I think they did grave damage, and a lot of that stuff is buried under the rumble because, it was an underground facility. So they I don't even know if they got the capabilities to dig through and actually see to assess the damage. They damn sure ain't do that shit in no day or two. That should have taken weeks, probably months to even be able to assess the damage.
At least 2 of Iran's nuclear facilities in the attack were probably not destroyed, and Iran's nuclear program was only set back by a few months. 2 people briefed on the classified preliminary report from the Defense Intelligence Agency say Iran's centrifuges might still be intact. The bombing sealed off at least 2 of Iran's nuclear facilities' entrances, but they did not destroy their underground structures. One source familiar with the initial intelligence says much of the enriched uranium was not destroyed because it was moved before the U.S. struck. Trump disputes that.
I think we hit them so hard and so fast they didn't get to move.
Another official says the report makes clear the findings are not conclusive, saying it would take
for them to say that they moved it will also be saying that they knew that it was coming, when the whole thing and the whole point we were saying that they didn't see us coming or going. So for them to say that it moved, they mean they had intelligence. There was a brief that it was gonna happen. So I don't know how true that is.
Days to weeks for answers. A key briefing tomorrow on Capitol Hill. The Senate will get a classified briefing on Iran after it had been postponed.
I think as members of Congress, the administration has an obligation to give us a very thorough and informed brief with the principles that can provide that information.
And we still have to see how much information the Trump administration shares with the senators tomorrow. After that briefing, the House gets their briefing on Friday. Live in Washington, Perry Russell, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
I believe it was total obliteration. I believe they didn't have a chance to get anything out because we acted fast.
No one is in a position to fully assess the question of.
That's what I was just saying. Like, you can't figure that out. So that's just all on the rumble. And the same thing like your damn somebody's house or building fall down in a city right here in America. You ain't gonna figure out everything in a day or two.
What was destroyed right now. What our reporting shows is that an initial assessment by the Defense Intelligence Agency, that's the intelligence arm of the Pentagon, found that these U.S. strikes on key Iranian nuclear facilities degraded those sites but did not destroy them, and likely only set back the Iranian nuclear program by a few months. The Trump administration.
I don't believe that. I don't believe months, because it's going to take you months to even get down there to assess what's going on. So months is, man, that's bullshit. It takes longer than that. And then afterwards, what they're not talking about is Israel bombed like the roads and everything leading up to the place. So they assessed. They did a lot of, they bombed it multiple times. It wasn't like they bombed it twice or something. But this is the shit they want to put out there. Just to like, they more concerned about debunking Trump than worrying about what was best for the country and national security. They more concerned about trying to prove him wrong. I'm getting tired of this shit. Let's look into fucking P. Diddy, man. Let's see what the hell he's talking about. Let's go. So this shit is near end. It's crazy because they said they found bombshell evidence and all that, but now they dropping the charges. That's crazy. But let's look at what they saying or how they saying it happened.
We're outside federal court in Lower Manhattan, where for the last 7 weeks, federal prosecutors have been presenting their case against one of music's biggest stars, the hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs. And after 34 witnesses testifying over 28 days, when even the temperature has gone from 50 degrees to 100 degrees, today the prosecution rested. Soon, a jury of 8 men and 4 women will be handed the case after hearing from 34 witnesses and examining more than 1,000 pieces of evidence, including voice notes of Combs played in court.
Where my life is at right now, I don't have no time for no games, baby girl. Me and you could be mad, I could have a spat, we could have whatever. Then after that, you better get on your job.
Some of the government's key testimony came from 3 alleged victims: 7 former Combs employees, 4 hotel workers, 2 celebrities, and 2 male escorts, one known as the Punisher and Daniel Phillip. Prosecutors say this testimony and
It's crazy you letting somebody knock down your girl named the Punisher, bro. That's wild. I mean, he ain't a felon, so I don't see what's the point of him. What's the point of him having weapons? Why that's a big deal.
Hundreds of pieces of evidence paint a picture of a criminal enterprise they say Combs used to coerce.
Let's see, do this shit look like a RICO? You got arson, which is arson. Before they was telling the story like he blew the car up and everything, but there was no evidence that he was even there or anywhere near the car. And then DNA came back that it was linked to a female. So we know at the most that wasn't him. Bribery, I don't know how that's racketeering. That's just bribing motherfucker. Kidnapping. They say he kidnapped the girl to go over there to burn up the car. But he went in the house, not to burn up the car, to go to Kid Cudi's house. But she sat in the car with the doors unlocked, where she could have left the whole time. And he take her with force. He told her to get in the car. You're going to help me do whatever to Kid Cudi. So that's the kidnapping charge. But it was attempting kidnapping, what they put in as RICO. Prostitution, transportation, not making no excuses up. But he's the trick. He's buying the men for his ex-girlfriend and I guess current girlfriend at the time. And then narcotics. Narcotics, they found, like, you see how little that shit is for a billionaire? He could have bought kilos instead of D-rugs, you know, but that's what they knocking him for. Let's see.
Traffic and transport his alleged victims, with the defense unsuccessfully filing for 2 mistrials and the judge dismissing 1 juror for lack of candor. And in the midst of it all, a child was born to star witness Cassie Ventura. Sean Combs has maintained his innocence throughout, and his attorneys are resting the defense case without calling any witnesses, seemingly confident they've raised enough doubt among jurors that what they've heard for the last 7 weeks amounts to ex-girlfriends complaining about regretful sex. Stay with ABC News for all the latest developments as one of the most high-profile trials in recent memory heads to the jury.
Hi, I'm Evie Pilgrim. Thanks for streaming with us. A jury of 12 people will soon decide the fate of Sean Combs. Closing arguments are set to begin tomorrow. This will be the last chance for attorneys from both sides to speak directly to the jurors before they begin deliberations to decide if Combs is guilty or innocent. He's facing 5 charges: racketeering, conspiracy, 2 counts of sex trafficking, and 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. Combs has pleaded not guilty to all of these charges. Ahead of these closing arguments, attorneys meeting in court today for a charging conference with the judge. Prosecutors abandoning multiple allegations against the music mogul, including attempted kidnapping.
Like how they said multiple allegations, things that they charged them with. Now y'all abandoned it, y'all charged them with it. I just had that the RICO was the kidnapping, the narcotics, and some other stuff. But you'll see, she gonna explain.
And attempted arson as underlying crimes in the alleged racketeering conspiracy charge. Now, prosecutors have given jurors 10 possible predicate acts to find Combs guilty of racketeering conspiracy. To convict, they must unanimously agree on 2 of these so-called predicate acts. Now, later in the show, looking at Combs' past, we'll take a look at the music mogul's legal track record throughout the years. But we begin with ABC News Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Katersky. Aaron's been in the courtroom throughout this trial. He joins us now live outside the Manhattan courthouse. And Aaron, let's start with that letter that was submitted by the federal prosecutors about the racketeering conspiracy charge. What did they write to the judge?
It's probably the most complicated charge that Sean Combs is facing, and it's an elaborate scheme that the jury will have to go through to figure out if they're going to convict Combs. And so what federal prosecutors did in a letter to the judge, and what they're doing still in the charging conference now, Eva, is pruning their case a little bit to make it as simple and direct as possible for the jury. They have plenty of ways they could convict Sean Combs. The federal prosecutors are just picking out a couple of pieces in order to perhaps simplify it so they don't get bogged down.
And the prosecution laid out some options for deciding on this racketeering conspiracy charge. Walk us through the different paths that they've given the jury here.
So there are 10 so-called predicate acts. The jury would have to unanimously agree that Combs and others conspired to commit 2 of them in order to find Combs guilty of racketeering conspiracy. That could be kidnapping involving his former assistant Capricorn Clark. It could be arson involving Kid Cudi and his Porsche. It could be forced labor involving his former assistant who testified under the pseudonym Mia. It could be obstruction and
But they already dropped the charges for the arson and attempted kidnapping, so they're gonna have to find the other shit. They ain't charging with obstruction, so I don't know how they saying that. They only charging with trafficking, narcotics, and what was the other shit? It's 3 the racketeering. It was 3 charges. Oh, weapon possession, trafficking, narcotics, and weapon possession. So all that other stuff that they saying was the predicate, you got to prove that he been doing that beforehand, and they dropped those charges on the state and everything.
And the attempt to buy off Mia, as alleged, when one of Combs's bodyguards offered to send her a little something, ostensibly to keep her mouth shut about what she had witnessed Combs do, the violence that she said she had witnessed against Combs's ex-girlfriend.
And CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata joins us now. Charlie, always very good to see you. So much back and forth on all this. How much can we read into this initial assessment?
Well, Nancy, we got to talk about those words totally obliterated, completely obliterated, because the president and his secretary of defense have repeated that description even today. But sources tell CBS News there's no evidence to suggest that it was that bad. Certainly it hasn't been obliterated. It's not even kind of language that they use in traditional bomb damage or battle damage assessments. So again, they're saying it may have stalled Iran's nuclear program for a few months, like electricity and water was damaged, and the strikes caused 2 entrances or 2 facilities to collapse. But I have to say the Defense Intelligence Agency hasn't been able to determine the whereabouts of 900 pounds of highly enriched uranium that may have been removed from those sites. At the same time, they're saying, they released a statement this morning saying, look, this is a preliminary low confidence report assessment. It's not a final conclusion. And importantly, they have not been able to review the actual physical sites themselves, which will give the
How are you going to say they lying? How are you going to say whatever happened if you never even went out there? And that's what I was saying earlier. Like, how can you assess the damage this soon? So you just assuming people just talking out their ass or their mouth just because God gave them a mouth and a backside. Because how are you going to say, did y'all hear that? That they haven't physically went out there to assess the damage. So let's bring it back.
Assessment. It's not a final conclusion. They're saying, they released a statement this morning saying, look, this is a preliminary low confidence report assessment. It's not a final conclusion. And importantly, they have not been able to review the actual physical sites themselves, which will give the best or highest indication.
Yeah, when you're talking preliminary, you're talking initial, plenty of questions still to be asked. When could we get a more definitive look at the status of that nuclear program then?
I can report tomorrow, actually. President Trump posted on Truth Social that Secretary Hegseth and other military leaders will hold a briefing here at the Pentagon tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. It's unclear how much more evidence they'll be able to provide. Again, these are preliminary findings. It depends a lot on how much intelligence gathering they can manage. It's been described to me as more of an art than a science. It relies a lot on satellite imagery. And since these targets, as you've seen, deep underground, that can only show so much. So you have to keep relying on intercepting phone calls, and ideally getting someone on the ground. The head of Mossad, Israel's intelligence agency, thanked commandos who have been operating inside Iran, we can assume they're still there, and thanked the CIA for their cooperation too. So this is the kind of operation that will rely heavily on that kind of intelligence gathering.
Given all that, what has Iran itself said about its nuclear program, and has it said anything about what it plans to do next with it?
Yeah, so Iran's own Nuclear Atomic Energy Commission reports that the case of Fordo, anyway, the strikes destroyed the site's critical infrastructure and rendered the facility inoperable. So quite a lot of damage there. A foreign ministry spokesman admitted that 3 nuclear sites had been damaged, badly damaged in his words. But the head of Iran's nuclear program said Iran will recover from these strikes, will restore its nuclear program, which, again, they insist is in the pursuit of nuclear energy and not a nuclear bomb.
Charlie Daggett, I know we'll be checking back in with you tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
CBS News Chief White House Correspondent Nancy Cordes joins us now. And Nancy, thank you very much for being with us. We've heard a little bit about this at this point, but how has the White House reacted to this initial assessment on the nuclear program?
Nancy, there has been a sustained campaign from the president on down today to push back on this preliminary assessment and to argue that it is incomplete and that actually there is better intelligence out there that indicates that actually the damage to these nuclear sites was more severe. We had the CIA director put out a statement saying that there is new intelligence from a historically reliable and accurate source that he says contradicts what the Defense Department has concluded in this preliminary assessment. And he says that it was severely damaged. Now, again, severely damaged, still not the same as obliterated, but the president has been insisting. And
it's the same in his mind. His mind, it's the same. Any damage is obliterated to him. He's not going to do it small. He do it big. You're thinking small. He thinks big.
The confusing messaging from the president here, Nancy, is that on one hand, the president is saying it's too early to know. This defense assessment is incomplete. And then on the other hand, he is saying with complete certainty that the facilities were obliterated, destroyed. It can't be both. And so the question has to be somewhere in between. The White House also touting some Israeli intelligence that indicates that the damage may have been more severe than what this preliminary assessment concluded.
Yeah, very good point there, Nancy. And the U.S. announced today it's set to hold talks with Iranian officials next week. What do we expect that to look like?
That's a great question, because we've been asking the White House all day after the president announced this at the NATO summit, who is going to be involved in these talks? What are they going to be talking about? So far, the White House has provided us with no details, and the Iranians haven't confirmed the talks either. The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, said that the U.S. is seeking talks with Iranian officials, but we still don't know who would be involved from either side, what they would be talking about, whether the Iranians are eager to sit down with the U.S. just 7 days after their nuclear facilities were bombed by the United States. And so while the president is claiming that these talks are about to happen, we're still very short on details involving who, where, and when.
A lot of important details right there, too, Nancy. President Trump also wrapped up his trip to the NATO summit in the Netherlands today. It included a pretty big announcement on defense spending. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so he has been pushing European nations to contribute what he calls their fair share of spending to NATO for years. This is something that was a very big deal to him during his first term. It's still a big deal now. He's now pushing for every NATO nation to spend.
Yeah, we know he was trying to dismantle NATO because he felt like they wasn't pulling they weight, that we was pulling everything.
5% of its GDP on defense. He has argued that the U.S. was footing the bill for NATO, that other countries weren't pulling their weight. And now NATO is announcing that nearly all, if not all, of the countries are on board. Spain is the one outlier, and the president had a lot of choice words for the Spanish government today. He said that if they don't fall in line, that he is going to punish them in a trade deal and charge them higher tariffs to make up for the dollars that they're not spending on defense. But nevertheless, the president views this as a big win, something that he has pushed for years, that now is coming to pass.
All right, Nancy Cordes, very good to see you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We begin with this Fox News alert. President Trump just wrapping up that lengthy news conference in the Netherlands as he is ready to leave the NATO summit. And he will do so finding it to be different than when he found it. In 24 hours, the president launched America into the global spotlight with victories on multiple fronts. He brokered what could prove to be an historic ceasefire between Israel and Iran, and it is holding at this hour. And the president gave NATO nations a dose of reality, challenging each one to contribute more than double what they currently are for NATO military defense. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. Here is the president from moments ago.
We're going to talk to them next week with Iran. We may sign an agreement. I don't know. To me, I don't think it's that necessary. I mean, they had a war, they fought. Now they're going back to their world. We want no nuclear, but we destroyed the nuclear. In other words, that's destroyed. I said, Iran will not have nuclear. Well, we blew it up. It's blown up to kingdom come. And so I don't feel very strongly about it.
The NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte texted President Trump with praise for putting pressure on other member countries to boost their defense spending. Here's what he said. You have driven us to a really, really important moment for America, Europe, and the world. You will achieve something no American president in decades could get done. Europe is going to pay in a big way, as they should, and it will be your win. Also applauded the president's actions with Iran. Still, sources are saying, with low confidence, that Iran's nuclear program might only be set back by months. Sources from a leak. The White House and the Pentagon pushed back hard on that leak. And the head of the world's nuclear watchdog signaled his agreement about what really is going on right now on the ground in Iran. Watch this.
I could agree in the sense that what we see is a very important degree of damage, although no one has been there inside to see. Of course, the conclusion is that the damage must be, very, very, very important. I think the nuclear program, the Iranian nuclear program, has been set back significantly.
He went on to say for years, brand new satellite imagery shows the damage to 3 Iranian nuclear sites the United States targeted in Operation Midnight Hammer. The pictures capture the precision.
See, I can't tell the difference. I see the hole right here. That's about it. I see the little hole, but I mean it's underground. I see. Oh, this one you could tell. Photo, I really can't tell. But this one you can tell. You see it's like dented in. All the road and all that shit is gone.
And the depths of the strikes, each one. Senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy is near The Hague in Netherlands with more. Peter.
Harris, we can now report the FBI is investigating the leak of that Defense Intelligence Agency assessment that shows with low confidence the Iranian nuclear program was only set back by a number of months. We're also hearing from the Israeli side. They're saying that they believe, their intel shows, that the Iranian nuclear program was rendered inoperable. Iran's foreign minister says the program was badly damaged. And President Trump just explained what he has seen that leads him to believe that none of the enriched uranium actually left Fordo before the strikes.
No, we just the opposite. We think we hit them so hard and so fast they didn't get to move. And if you knew about that material, it's very hard and very dangerous to move. It's called in many people they call it dust, but it's very, very heavy. It's very, very hard to move. And they were way down, they're.
President Trump is also backing off his suggestion aboard Air Force.
That's my thing, though. It could still be a lot left. It's just they probably messed up a way for them to get to it that is going to set them back time to get to it, because they had it underground for a reason, to give some layer of protection.
One, that he could soon abandon NATO's Article 5, the rule that requires all members to defend any member that gets attacked. And he thinks that after his strikes on Saturday and the fragile ceasefire that was negotiated afterwards, that there can be peace between Iran and Israel.
They're not going to be fighting each other. They've had it. They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes. Then it's easy to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language to
You have to use strong language. Every once in a while, you have to use a certain word.
And President Trump is now comparing the strikes that he ordered on Saturday in Iran to the strikes the U.S. carried out in World War II over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, because he sees all three of them as ending a war in different ways. Harris?
Peter Doocy, thank you very much. First of all, let's start with the NATO summit and what pops to you as a huge moment.
Well, listen, I think the president has provided strong leadership for America and for the world. The last 4 years under Joe Biden, the world was in real jeopardy because we had a weak commander-in-chief. And when you have a president...
Bring this fry, listen to them on that shit. Are they launching a probe into that joint?
Hello and welcome to this special edition of the broadcast. My name is Mohammed Saleh. Now, the American President Donald Trump claims that the American strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities as part of Operation Midnight Hammer have obliterated Iran's nuclear facilities. But curiously for him, an early Pentagon intelligence assessment has stated that Iran's nuclear program has actually not been destroyed. In fact, it is according to this Pentagon's intelligence, it has only been set back by a few months. With this being the case, the question that obviously comes up is this: is Donald Trump even listening to his own intelligence agencies? Now, to make sense of this controversy, which the Trump administration at this moment is busy firefighting, we're joined in this broadcast by Professor Peter Kuznick, who is a professor of history and also a director of nuclear studies at the Institute at the American University. Now, Professor Kuznick, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on Beyond. Now, this is a bizarre sort of a controversy. The American president says that the Iranian nuclear sites that were bombed as part of Operation Midnight Hammer have all been obliterated. That is the word that he's been repeatedly using. But this Pentagon intelligence assessment that's been leaked to some of the American media networks claims otherwise. It says that the Iranian nuclear sites probably have not been destroyed, and Iran's nuclear program has only been set back by a few months. What are we to make of this controversy?
It's another lesson in understanding Donald Trump. One can never believe the words that come out of his mouth. The Washington Post reported that during his first administration, he told more than 30,000 lies. Was wildly successful, and that now we were finished. It was a one in.
They doing more talking about trying to dis. Oh, he's in hiding. Okay.
Nowhere to be seen. The most powerful person in Iran, the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, the ruler of Iran for the last 36 years. And tonight, there are major questions about his well-being and his whereabouts. Since Trump announced the ceasefire, we have not heard a single word from him. We've heard from Iran's president. We've heard from the foreign minister. We've heard from the head of the IRGC, as I just showed you. But we have not heard from the supreme leader. In fact, as of right now, as I'm talking, it has been more than 48 hours since his last post on social media, which was this image of an American flag going up in flames. And while our Fred Pleiken has seen people on the streets of Tehran, among the regime faithful, holding up pictures of the Ayatollah, this appears to be the last time that we've seen him on camera. That was back on June 18th, exactly 1 week ago. Since then, we know he's been in a bunker hiding. according to the New York Times, no longer using electronic communications, reportedly has a list of several successors in case he's killed. A source even telling me that the foreign minister was unable to get in touch with the supreme leader of the country during the ceasefire itself on whether to make a deal. I mean, this is incredible. This is the man who has been calling the shots for 36 years. And here we are at one of the most important moments, maybe the most important in those years. And he's nowhere to be seen. And there's been no one more vocal.
Tony Wilson, thanks for following, subbing to the channel over on Rumble. Appreciate you.
Over those past decades when it comes to threatening the United States. He has led the Death to America chants. He's warned the United States would suffer irreparable damage, his words, should it enter the conflict between Iran and Israel, right? Leading the charge on this. He also threatened American bases. He's the one who warned that they are within Iran's reach. So his absence is glaring, and it comes at a crucial time. The ceasefire between Iran and Israel hanging on by a thread, holding tonight, mercifully, but still very fragile and new. Well, here's the president of Iran.
Can it start again? I guess someday it can. It could maybe start soon.
Of course, that's the president of the United States, although now I wonder what he would think of the misspeak I just had. Jeff Zeleny is out front live outside the White House. And Jeff, you know, in that context, you hear Israel controlling the skies.
President Trump is making his way back here to the White House.
Let's see what they're talking about.
With you now with some breaking celebrity dish news. Prosecutors have dropped some charges against Diddy. Joining us now is TMZ executive producer Harvey Levin with the latest late breaking details. I mean, Harvey, I can't get through your story here fast enough. What's the latest?
Okay, it's a little bit confusing, Marissa, but let me explain. The prosecution sent a letter to the judge saying they want to, the judge had asked prosecutors and defense to streamline the proposed jury instructions. The prosecution is saying, okay, so let's eliminate attempted kidnapping, attempted arson, and aiding and abetting sex trafficking. So now the question, what does that mean? We know the arson relates to Diddy allegedly blowing up Kid Cudi's car in a fit of jealousy, the fact that Kid Cudi had dated Cassie. So it would seem that they're saying we're just not going to pursue that when it comes to giving the jury instructions because the jury never directly tied Diddy to the actual arson of the car. Now, they do mention the word attempted, so I suppose you can make the argument that they're going to not say he attempted it, he actually did it. But that doesn't make sense because all they said in the testimony was that they believe he did it. Mm-hmm. And it went on fire, so it was done. So it seems like they're eliminating that. And similarly, when it comes to kidnapping, you may remember that there was testimony by Capricorn Clark, Diddy's assistant, saying that Diddy suspected her of stealing jewelry. They took her, put her in a warehouse and gave her lie detector tests, and putting her in that warehouse was kidnapping. It seems they're not going to pursue that. And there was a second one involving this alleged victim, Jane. So it seems they're taking certain things off the table, but I got to be honest with you, the letter's a little bit confusing, but it definitely seems the prosecution is pulling back on what they are going to argue to the jury in closing argument.
Absolutely. And when it comes to the aiding and abetting with the sex trafficking, that charge is still there, but they're pulling back on even some of those details.
And my guess is what they're pulling back on are things like Diddy's assistant booking a hotel room. I mean, How is, that's booking a hotel room. Trivago is not sex trafficking. and, just booking a hotel room is not really evidence of sex trafficking. So I'm guessing it's things like that they might be pulling back on.
It definitely appears as if the prosecution have found some weak spots in their case, potentially, and that's why they're giving the jury those instructions, before making their closing arguments. Thank you so much, Harvey. I know this was breaking news that you all have provided us with, and we'll certainly stay in the know as we continue to cover the outcome of this case. Just a reminder, you can catch Harvey and the entire TMZ team.
That's crazy. You get right up to closing statements, closing arguments, and now you want to drop charges after you let them do all that testimony against him, saying this and that and the freak offs and trafficking. But now you telling them, you let the man testify, let him perjure himself. Now you want to take it off because you can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt. But you indicted him though. That's crazy, man. Nancy Grace, she another one that's terrible.
Communication, language, people take them for granted.
Ain't no stopping us now. After the defense took under 30 minutes to rest its case, the prosecution scrambles. Is the mogul about to go?
It's crazy though. He's paying multiple millions for his lawyers, and they took what they said less than 30 minutes to plead his side of the story. That's wow. Their case must be weak.
Free?
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord.
The government dropped several charges against Diddy, including attempted kidnapping and attempted arson.
Attempted arson. Before they talk about he blew up the car, he done cut it up and shit. Even though I tell you they found female DNA, not male DNA.
It's a signal, perhaps, that maybe they don't believe they have what they need as far as evidence.
I think there is a decent possibility that Diddy's gonna walk. Certainly on the racketeering and the sex trafficking charges. The one count that they may have an easier time with is the transportation to engage in prostitution, because it's pretty clear that these sex workers were being transported from one side of the country to the other.
It's more than likely these jurors will start deliberating on Monday. So tomorrow we are expected to hear those closing arguments from the prosecution and the defense.
And we've got more legal news. Todd and Julie Chrisley speak out for the first time, sharing the emotional moment they learned they had been pardoned.
I just started busting out crying.
I didn't even know he was in jail. I ain't paying no mind to him. I didn't even know he was in jail, man.
I'm getting out of here. I'm getting out of here.
One of the guys, the COs, he came by and he goes, "Are you good?" And I said, "As good as I can be." And he said,
he was happy as hell in there, looked like.
You just got pardoned. They sent me down here to make sure you're okay. And I said, well, they don't need to be worrying about me now. Hell, if I'm pardoned, I'm great.
The full interview airs Saturday night on Fox News Channel.
There are charges alleging kidnapping, arson, that's the Kid Cudi case. They are alleging aiding and abetting in sex trafficking. They are slimming that all down so that they're not going to kind of overburden and overwhelm the jury with instructions.
Right. They're saying that to the judge that when you give the jury their instructions.
The thing that's missing, I feel like, in a lot of the conversations is to understand that what's happening in Israel is a proxy conflict between Iran and the United States.
That's what you think?
So I
I'm
picked
from
her.
Spain too. I'm Ana Buc from La Vanguardia. I wanted to know if
You're where from?
Spain too.
Ah.
I wanted to know if you want to.
That's the Spain corner right there. Shouldn't have said that. That's okay. I do like Spain, by the way. I think it's unfair that they're not paying, but go ahead.
Are you going to negotiate directly with Spain about?
I'm going to negotiate directly with Spain. I'm going to do it myself. They're going to pay. They'll pay more money this way. You should tell them to go back and pay. You're a reporter. You tell them to go back. They ought to join all of those countries that are paying 5%. Spain's going to be just about the only one that's not. They were the most hostile toward doing it. It just doesn't make sense to me. Okay, all right, Kelly, go ahead.
Spain was one of my favorite countries to visit.
The intelligence was very inconclusive. The intelligence says we don't know. It could have been very severe. That's what the intelligence says. So I guess that's correct. But I think we can.
Apparently includes a criminal investigation.
We do have Air Force One there on the tarmac at Joint Base Andrews. The door is open. We are just waiting for President Trump to exit the plane and get into the beast, the motorcade here. So he is back from the NATO summit. We want to, in just a moment here, bring into the conversation someone who covers the White House each and every day. Kind of good timing that we have this live picture. Let's bring him in now, actually. This is Christian Daytok, of course, friend of the program, reporter at the Washington Examiner, and Christian joins me. Christian, good to see you. We're not going to bring you on camera just yet because we have these live pictures. This is perfect timing. Trump is back in D.C. Let's first get to the NATO summit in general. NATO leaders today agreed on a massive hike in defense spending to 5% of GDP after pressure from President Trump. They expressed their, quote, ironclad commitment to come to each other's aid if attacked. Christian, you know more than most and better than most. This has been an issue President Trump has been campaigning on since he came down the gold escalator at Trump Tower. Isn't that right?
It is, and it's certainly an issue that he pressed for heavily during his first term in office and during his first few months of his second term as well. And I think it marks a pretty substantive change, not only in the way that Europe handles its own defense, but how some of these European leaders might have learned to handle Donald Trump himself. Now, I do think one of the interesting aspects to these developments is that the United States will not be joining on to that 5% commitment to spending on defense relating to Europe and other NATO members. But again, he's talking about the conflicts that obviously the United States is currently involved in the Middle East and potential tensions brewing in the South Pacific pursuant to China. So on the one hand, you've got the European leaders giving Donald Trump something that he wants in hopes that perhaps he scratches their backs in regard to Ukraine. And obviously, we've seen a shifting stance from President Trump regarding President Putin and Russia's ongoing aggression over the last several weeks or so.
So, Christian, what will the White House tout in the wake of the NATO summit?
How
is it just
doing?
that key agenda?
What's up, hey? How you doing? Missed you the last couple of lives we had. I was looking for you the other night. We was in here. How you doing?
Item or anything else? What about the war in Ukraine? He met with Volodymyr Zelensky on the sidelines. What about that? What's coming out of that?
Well, there was one certainly development out of that meeting with President Zelensky, which I should note did not take place with reporters present. The White House had said that that was for operational and privacy reasons. But the president was asked about his meeting with President Zelensky during his press conference before departing the Netherlands. And he essentially said he is now considering sending more Patriot missile systems to Ukraine. This has been something that Zelensky has asked of President Trump since he entered office back in January. But the American president has been hesitant to provide because he wants to see.
He was trying to mend his relationships with Putin. That's why he was hesitant now. Him and Putin is beefing with each other. He ready to arm up Ukraine because he said he getting sick and tired of him. He feel like he dumb. That's a lot coming from Trump for him to call somebody dumb.
This war wind down. But again, because of this ongoing aggression by Russia and the failure of President Putin to substantively come to the negotiating table on a ceasefire, I think you're seeing President Trump shift in his position. There was an extraordinary moment where a Ukrainian reporter who is currently living in Warsaw with her children asked the president a question on this topic, and he took a minute and asked her about her story, asked about her husband, who is still back in Ukraine and is fighting for the defense of their homeland. So it's certainly a different position that President Trump is expressing on Ukraine compared to just a few weeks and certainly the early days of his second term in office.
Yeah, I mean, Christian, we brought you on today because we want to talk about the kind of conflicting reports coming from the intelligence community about the actual impact that the bunker buster bombs dropped from the B-2 bombers had on those 3 Iranian nuclear sites here. And this seems to be really a fixation amongst Trump White House officials and the president himself. So much so that he posted this while on the plane en route back to D.C. on Truth Social, saying this, that Secretary of Defense war, exclamation point, Pete Hegseth, together with military representatives, will be holding a major news conference tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern at the Pentagon in order to fight for the dignity of our great American pilots. These patriots were very upset. After 36 hours of dangerously flying through enemy territory, they landed. They knew the success was legendary. And then 2 days later, they started reading fake news by CNN and the failing New York Times. They felt terribly. Fortunately for them, and as usual, solely for the purpose of demeaning President Donald J. Trump, the fake news, Times, and CNN lied and totally misrepresented the facts, none of which they had, because it was too soon. There were no facts out there yet, he says. The news conference will prove both interesting and irrefutable. Well, Fox News correspondent Rebecca Castor has a little bit more. Let's just watch this briefly.
President Trump is headed home from the NATO summit in the Netherlands, but not before making it clear that Saturday's strikes on Iran's nuclear sites were successful.
The site is obliterated, and we think everything nuclear is down there. They didn't take it out.
Trump officials.
That's what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to let our adversaries feel that we done caused great damage. That's the whole point of the news when they report on shit like this, is like to push out the narrative they want in propaganda.
Are pushing back on a leaked U.S. intelligence report suggesting the strikes did not destroy Iran's ability to create a nuclear weapon. Fox has learned that report is a preliminary low-confidence assessment based on just 1 day's worth of intelligence.
Those that dropped the bombs precisely in the right place know exactly what happened when that exploded. And you know who else knows? Iran. That's why they came to the table right away.
A lot of their above-ground facilities that are a critical part of a centrifuge program have been destroyed. And so a lot of what really is left is sort of what I call the residuals or the remnants of the program.
A nuclear deal with Iran could also still be on the table. Trump says the U.S. will be meeting with Iranian officials next week, although he's no longer insisting on an agreement.
To me, I don't think it's that necessary. I mean, they had a war, they fought, now they're going back to their world. I don't care if I have an agreement or not.
Both the Pentagon and FBI are working to find the source of the leaked classified intelligence report. In Washington, Rebecca Castor, Fox News.
Rebecca, thanks so much. Back here with Christian Daytalk. So, Christian, I have to ask this. Is the White House on the offensive about all of this? Has their language moderated at all? Are we still at obliterated when describing and characterizing the effect the bunker buster bombs had?
President Trump certainly isn't moderating his language, and the White House staff who I spoke to, and based on statements that they've put out publicly, they do not appear to be walking back from this line, criticizing CNN, the New York Times, and others for reporting about this DIA assessment that came out of the Pentagon. But I think it's important to note here, the truth is somewhere in the gray area. President Trump is arguing that these nuclear facilities have been completely obliterated. Certain satellite imagery and intelligence from the U.S., Israel, and our Five Eyes allies have corroborated part of that. But there's just no way to know if the entire underground facility at Fordo is obliterated until international inspectors go in there. And I do think it's interesting. Again, the White House isn't disputing that this report was put out by the Pentagon, at least internally, but it is a win in that they get to flip this thing back on the press. They're saying that CNN, New York Times, again, the fake news, as the president puts it, they are denigrating these quote unquote patriots who flew this B-2 bombing mission, and they're arguing that they're trying to weaken the president's position. It's a familiar place that we're seeing. It's a familiar play that they're running, try and pit the public against the media when some of the situations that the president is handling aren't exactly coming to pass as he might have foreseen.
So, Christian, Jennifer Griffin has this reporting there for Fox at the Pentagon that this Defense Intelligence Agency assessment was preliminary, that it was, quote unquote, 1 day's worth of intelligence reporting. And we also heard from Tulsi Gabbard today, the Director of National Intelligence, indicating there is more intelligence on these strikes here. She said this, I'm going to read it in full, it's kind of long. She says, new intelligence confirms what POTUS has stated numerous times. Iran's nuclear facilities have been destroyed. If the Iranians chose to rebuild, they would have to rebuild all 3 facilities, Natanz, Fordow, Esfahan, entirely, which would likely take years to do. The propaganda media has deployed their usual tactic, selectively release portions of illegally leaked classified intelligence assessments, intentionally leaving out the fact that the assessment was written with low confidence to try to undermine President Trump's decisive leadership and the brave servicemen and women who flawlessly executed a truly historic mission to keep the American people safe and secure. So that's coming from DNI Gabbard. We also have yet another kind of corroborating statement from the CIA director as well, John Ratcliffe, saying he is confirming CIA intelligence which contradicts illegally sourced public reporting regarding the destruction of key Iranian nuclear facilities. And in Axios today, Christian, you alluded to this, that the Trump administration is planning to limit sharing classified information with Congress after someone leaked an internal assessment suggesting the bombings of the facilities were not as successful as President Trump claimed. So when I ask you about the White House going on the offensive, it seems like they're putting out all the stops to disabuse the press and the public of this notion that the bunker buster bombs had little to no effect, or we just can't know entirely for sure right this very moment.
Without a doubt, but I want to go back to DNI Gabbard's statement for a second. She talks about new evidence, but what's not in that statement that she puts out, what this new evidence actually is. And I understand that, classification law is playing a part here, but I just want to point to what Secretary of State Marco Rubio said in the Netherlands earlier. He talked about how they had confirmed that this bombing run had taken out a conversion facility. That is a specific detail that we aren't hearing from some of these other administration officials. Look, ultimately, I think we're arguing semantics, right? We have 100% concrete proof that those B-2 massive ordnance bombs hit those 3 nuclear facilities. They have set back those programs for an undetermined amount of time, and we won't know exactly how long that window is, again, until international inspectors get in there. And so I think the president trying to say that the media is wholesale fabricating these reports is just not correct. Again, I think if you want to take a look in the mirror, if you're President Trump, he's thinking about his legacy. He has not been able to bring Iran to a new nuclear deal. He had hoped that Tehran might be more willing to negotiate after these strikes took place. And now he's saying, as he's departing the NATO summit, I don't care if we get a deal with Iran. Their facilities are destroyed and they do not have the capacity to acquire a nuclear weapon. He's trying to spin this into as big of a win as possible. And again, that's why you're seeing the all-out blitz against the media.
Yeah, I mean, Axios is reporting the FBI is investigating this leak out of the Defense Intelligence Agency. A senior White House official to Axios said, quote, "We're declaring a war on leakers." They said the intelligence community is figuring out how to tighten up their processes so we don't have deep state actors leaking parts of intel analysis that have low confidence to the media. And I've been stipulating that in our reporting. This DIA analysis was low confidence. It was a low confidence assessment. And it was just one agency out of 18 intelligence agencies in kind of the national security apparatus of the United States. So that's all important here. But are you or are people there in the White House concerned at all? Is there anyone there about the weaponization or politicization of intelligence matters?
I think they're certainly concerned about the politicization of the intelligence community, and this event itself doesn't necessarily start the beginning of that panic. I mean, again, it wasn't so long ago when we were on here talking about how Pete Hegseth was firing people left and right because they had leaked details about all of Signalgate. And again, you saw the president go after The Atlantic and Jeffrey Goldberg, slam them as fake news. And then eventually, once that story sort of died down a little bit, they moved on to the next scandal or the next crisis. That's just what this administration does. They see themselves in a hole, and in order to dig out of it, they'll go back and run the same plays that work with their base. In this case, try and push back against the idea that the media is covering this administration objectively. Again, it's never failed for Donald Trump to pit his supporters, pit the general Republican Party against the media, and that's what I see them doing right now.
But does President Trump have a point that low confidence intelligence assessment is undercutting the success of the mission?
I don't think so. I mean, again, I think it might be a different story if you're seeing Iran, mobilize military assets, but Tehran is signaling to the White House that they want to pick up the phone and resume negotiations. They might not get a deal by next week, but it doesn't appear, at least based on any early indications, that this situation will escalate. So as far as undermining the success of this mission, I think that's a place of perhaps fan fiction that the president is writing from right now, because again, he's trying to get this into as big of a win as possible, and he's trying to heal that rift within the MAGA caucus that is split on the question of potential new military intervention in the Middle East.
Yeah, I just want to put this up from Hugo Lowell there at The Guardian. He says Pete Hegseth says he launched another leak investigation with the FBI into the disclosure of classified reports saying limited damage to Fordow. He says we're doing a leak investigation with the FBI right now because this information is for internal purposes and battle damage assessments here. So we'll just have to wait for more battle damage assessments and more intelligence on this. And of course, for this press conference tomorrow at the Pentagon with Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and, in President Trump's words, other military advisors. What else do you have your eye on going into later this week, Christian?
It's hard to think about anything else right now, Andrew, but I do want to talk about how important the next few weeks will be in regard to the president's hopes of signing that one big beautiful tax bill into law before July 4th. We've got, a Senate text, and we're awaiting a vote here soon before that package can get sent back to the House. And the White House, look, they're saying we do not care about recent events on the international stage. We want this bill signed by Independence Day, and it's up to Leader Thune and Speaker Johnson to make sure that gets done. That's what else I'll be watching. But again, it's hard to peel your eyes away from the conflict in the Middle East right now.
That is so true. Christian Daytalk, as always. Just thought of one more thing, something I'm watching July 9th. That's that deadline. 90 days will be up for all those trade deals. We'll have to check in on the progress on those. Christian, always good to see you.
They have better seats than I do.
Mr. President, what are you telling the Prime Minister about your goals for NATO and our...
Yeah, it's good now. I had to log off and log back on. Now it's good.
Today.
We're with them all the way. I mean, if you take a look at the numbers, we're with them, and they have very big things to announce today. I don't know if you've taken the vote or you're going to take the vote, but I've been asking them to go up to 5% for a number of years, and they're going up to 5%. That's a big, from 2%. And a lot of people didn't even pay the 2%. So I think it's going to be very big news. NATO is going to become very strong with us, and I appreciate doing it. Perhaps you want to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me first, before I go to spending, I just want to recognize your decisive action on Iraq.
Thank you.
You are a man of strength, but you're also a man of peace. And the fact that you are now also successful in getting this ceasefire done between Israel and Iran, I really want to commend you for that.
Thank you.
And I think this is important for the whole world. Then on spending, it's absolutely true. I want to state here, without President Trump, this would not have happened. In 3 stages. When you became president in 2016, 2017, you forced Europeans and Canadians to pay more. At this moment, the result of that phase is $1 trillion extra aggregate defense spending by the Canadians and the Europeans. Then came phase 2, when you became president in January last year. Phase 2 is that all the countries not yet on 2% have now committed to the 2%. This is the old goal from Wales in 2014. 7 were not on 2%. Some were saying somewhere in the 2030s. Now this year, all of them, including Canada, including Italy, including Belgium, they have all now committed to the 2%. And now comes the big splash. Today, we will decide to go to 5%. We have to keep ourselves safe from our adversaries, but also because it is fair to equalize with the United States. With this 5%, the Europeans and the Canadians will equalize their defense spending with the United States. So this is not about American taxpayers paying more. This is about Europeans, Canadians paying more. And again, this would not have happened. I'm really saying this here. And some people might criticize me, but then when I speak with them, they all say, yes, you're right. This would not have happened if you would not have been elected in 2016 and re-elected last year and back into office in January. So I want to thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It's a great victory for everybody, I think. And we will be equalized very shortly, and that's the way it has to be. It's going to be a lot of money, too, a lot of defense.
Trillions extra.
Yeah, and we have a great relationship, and we've had a great relationship from the beginning. Highly respected man, and yeah, we appreciate you being here, too, everybody. We really do. We have a tremendous group of people on my left and a tremendous group of people on my right. They might be even better than my people. Let's have a fight. Let's figure it out. Anyway, but we appreciate it, and we've had a tremendous relationship, Mark and I, and we've really worked on this subject for a long time. When Biden was here, it just died like everything else died. And now it's you're going to take, I guess, a vote today, right?
Absolutely. Today we will decide unanimously to do it. That's my absolute conviction.
So we can't talk about it until the vote's taken, because sometimes strange things happen to us. But I think you're going to.
I'm not too worried.
I think you're going to do very well. Everyone's very happy about it. Go ahead. Yes,
Mr. President. How is the Iran-Israel ceasefire going, in your opinion?
I think very good. Israel came back yesterday. I was so proud of them. Because they came back, they went out because they felt there was a violation, and technically they were right, but it just wouldn't have worked out very well. And they brought the planes back. They had gone on to another journey because there was a little bit of a violation, and I said, you got to get them back. And they came back, and it was a great thing, and it's going very well.
Mr. President, what is your response to the foreign minister saying he still wants to enrich nuclear?
Hello, Katie. She's so great, this one. Any question she asks, I'll answer. Well, maybe I better not say that. What was your question?
What is your response to the Iranian foreign minister continuing to say Iran will enrich uranium and pursue nuclear weapons?
Well, I don't know if they've said that, but I'll tell you, the last thing they want to do is enrich anything right now. They want to recover. And we won't let that happen. Number one, militarily we won't. I think we'll end up having somewhat of a relationship with Iran. I see it. Look, I've had a relationship over the last 4 days. They agreed to the ceasefire. And it was a very equal agreement. They both said, that's enough. They both said it. But no, they won't do that. The last thing they want to do, Katie, is enrich. They're not looking to... They're not... Can you imagine after all of that, they're going to say, oh, let's go and do a bomb. There could be a day in the future where, and then somebody else taking our place will be saying, don't do it. And maybe they won't do it as well. I don't know. But they're not going to have a bomb, and they're not going to enrich. And we believe all of the stuff is down there. We don't think they had nearly the time, because to get that out is a very difficult thing. It's not like moving a package or taking this carpet up and moving it. It's very difficult. It's very dangerous to do. We believe it's all down there. We had a tremendous victory, a tremendous hit, and because of that, I don't think they would have been down there, because they knew we were coming. When they know we're coming, they're not going to be down in that 30 stories underground. So no, I think it was just a tremendous victory for everybody, including Iran. Look, they've got a country, and they've got oil, and they're very smart people, and they can come back. Israel got hit very hard, especially the last couple of days. Israel was hit really hard. Those ballistic missiles, boy, they took out a lot of buildings. And they've been great. Bibi Netanyahu should be very proud of himself. And they've really been great. But they're not going to be building bombs for a long time.
Mr. President, what's your reaction to the intelligence reports saying that the Iranian nuclear sites were only partially devastated, not entirely?
Yeah, well, they said it was actually, the report said it could have been they don't know. I mean, they did a report. I could have Pete talk to it because his department did the report. They really don't know. I think Israel's going to be telling us very soon, because Bibi is going to have people involved in that whole situation. We hear it was obliteration. It was a virtual obliteration. When you take a look at the ground above, don't forget the flame is all underground. But everything above, if you look at the before and the after picture, everything above is burned black. The trees, everything. There's one building, but that's a building that sunk substantially into the granite, so that, you know, the fire goes right over it. It was, I believe it was total obliteration. I believe they didn't have a chance to get anything out because we acted fast. If it would have taken 2 weeks maybe, but it's very hard to remove that kind of material. Very hard and very dangerous for them to remove it. Plus, they knew we were coming, and if they know we're coming, they're not going to be down there. There aren't too many people that are going to be down there. Pete, do you have something to say about that?
Well, Mr. President, when you talk to the people who built the bombs, understand what those bombs can do, and deliver those bombs, they landed precisely where they were supposed to. So it was a flawless mission.
Flawless.
Right down where we knew they needed to enter. And given the 30,000 pounds of explosives and capability of those munitions, it was devastation underneath Fordo. And the amount of munitions, 6 per location, any assessment that tells you it was something otherwise is speculating with other motives. And we know that because when you actually look at the report, by the way, it was a top secret report, it was preliminary, it was low confidence. All right, so this is you make assessments based on what you know.
And it said it could be very devastating, very serious.
Moderate to severe, and we believe far more likely severe and obliterated. So this is a political motive here.
Was there a leak investigation?
Of course, we're doing a leak investigation with the FBI right now because this information is for internal purposes, battle damage assessments, and CNN and others are trying to spin it to make the president look bad when this was an overwhelming success.
We had a tremendous success, and this is the New York Times. I call it the failing New York Times. It's going to hell. And CNN, which, as you know, very few people are watching. And you would think they'd do the opposite. You would think they'd want to say, this was an unbelievable success. And the thing that hurts me is it's really demeaning to the pilots and the people that put that whole thing together, the generals. That was a perfect operation. And when you look at the holes, and this was done from 52,000 feet, there was no moon, there was no light, and those 3 holes are right together. And also, and nobody talks about this, we shot 30 Tomahawks from submarines. In particular, one submarine, but that was 400 miles away. And every one of those Tomahawks hit within a foot of where they were supposed to hit. Took out a lot of buildings that Israel wasn't able to get. We took them out with Tomahawks. We don't even talk about that. This was a devastating attack, and it knocked them for a loop. And, you know, if it didn't, they wouldn't have settled. If they had won, if we didn't take it out, they wouldn't have settled. Somebody mentioned that to me last night. If that thing wasn't devastated, they would have never settled. Marco, do you have something to say?
No, first of all this stuff about the intelligence, this is what a leaker is telling you the intelligence says. That's the game these people play. They read it, and then they go out and characterize it the way they want it characterized, and they're leakers. This is the game they play. So that's number one. Number two, here's a fact. The conversion facility, which you can't do a nuclear weapon without a conversion facility. We can't even find where it is, where it used to be on the map. You can't even find where it used to be because the whole thing is just blackened out. It's gone.
It's wiped out.
It's wiped out. Then we dropped 12 of the strongest bombs on the planet right down the hole in 2 places. Everything underneath that mountain is in bad shape. And I refer you to the statement of the IAEA, Mr. Grossi. You know what he said? He said there was Iran, the way it looked the day before the attack, and what their nuclear program looks like now. 2 very different things. They are way behind where they were just 7 days ago. Now, anything in the world can be rebuilt. But now we know where it is, and if they try to rebuild it, we'll have options there as well. But all this leaker stuff, these leakers are professional stabbers. That's what they are. They go out and they read this stuff, and then they tell you what it says against the law, but they characterize it for you in a way that's absolutely false. There's no way Iran comes to the table if somehow nothing had happened. This was complete and total obliteration. They're in bad shape. They are way behind today compared to where they were just 7 days ago because of what the president did.
Marco, can I just alert you to one other aspect? So the great thing is you took out the nuclear capability of Iran. This was crucial. You did it in a way which is extremely impressive. But the signal sends to the rest of the world that this president, when it comes to it, yes, he's a man of peace, but if necessary, he is willing to use strength, the enormous strength of the American military. So I think that signal to the rest of the world, this is far beyond Iran, is extremely important. So let me also point us to that aspect of what happens.
They went down, Iran went down to the site afterwards. They said it's so devastated, and they settled when they saw what we did to it. And frankly, if we didn't do that, they would have had a lot of ammunition to keep going. They wouldn't have settled. Somebody brought that up, and 2 Iranians went down to see it, and they called back and they said, this place is gone. So it's just fake news by CNN, which has got no ratings. It's a failed network. Anybody here from CNN, by the way? Because you're a really disgraceful network. MSNBC, I think, is actually worse. But they're all pretty bad. But yours is good, Katie, I'll tell you.
Mr. President,
you know what Marco reminded me that he did such a nice job there. It was 9 years ago I had to debate this guy. He was not easy. I think he even got better. But when you were into your little thing, I said, this is when I had to debate this guy. You think it's easy to debate him? It's not easy.
How long do you think that the Iranian nuclear program has been put back by these strikes? Years or totally obliterated?
I think basically decades, because I don't think they'll ever do it again. I just don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to take their oil, they're going to have some missiles, and they'll have some defense. I think they've had it. I mean, they just went through hell. I think they've had it. The last thing they want to do is enrich. They've been trying to do it. By the way, it's hard to enrich. And, you know, when you look at a site like that, very, very hard to build. Very, very hard. Very expensive. They spent trillions of dollars trying to do this thing, and they didn't come up with it. And we're actually getting along with them very well right now. But had we not succeeded with that hit ended the war. That hit ended the war. I don't want to use an example of Hiroshima. I don't want to use an example of Nagasaki. But that was essentially the same thing. That ended that war. This ended that with the war. If we didn't take that out, they'd be fighting right now.
Mr. President?
Yeah.
If the Iranians do rebuild, would the United States...
If they rebuild?
Would the United States strike again? And I have also a question about Russia.
But I'm not going to have to worry about that. It's gone for years. Very tough to rebuild because the whole thing has collapsed. In other words, inside, it's all collapsed. Nobody can get in to see it because it's collapsed. You can't go in to see a room that has, 10 million tons of rock in it. And the time...
That's a good point right there. How you going to see if it's collapsed and buried in? Now, they might be able to salvage some shit that's under there, and that probably take months to even assess the damage.
Tunnels are totally collapsed.
But if they rebuild?
Well, they've already looked at the tunnels. This was an unbelievable hit by genius pilots and genius people in the military, and they're not being given credit for it because we have scum that's in this group, and not all of you are. You have some great reporters, but you have scum. CNN is scum. MSDNC is scum. The New York Times is scum. They're bad people. They're sick. And what they've done is they're trying to make this unbelievable victory into something less. Now, even they admit that it was hit very hard, okay? But it wasn't hit hard. It was hit brutally, and it knocked it out. The original word that I use, I guess it got us in trouble because it's a strong word. It was obliteration. And you'll see that. And it's going to come out. Israel is doing a report on it now, I understand. And I was told that they said it was total obliteration. They have guys that go in there after the hit, and they say it was total obliteration. And I don't want it for me. I want it for the pilots. I want it for the military. They did such a good job. If you were in the Situation Room with me, with the generals and all of the people that did such a good job, and then they get demeaned by these idiots at CNN who can't get ratings. The place is dying. Nobody wants to even waste their time going on their shows. So they form with the New York Times, who's dying also. Without Trump, you wouldn't have a New York Times.
And then just changing gears to your meeting with Zelensky later today, can you give us any preview of what the two of you might be discussing?
No, well, we'll discuss the obvious. We'll discuss his difficulty. He's got a little difficulty. Zelensky. He's a nice guy. I mean, I'm going to meet him today. I don't know. I assume we're going to be discussing Ukraine.
Yes.
And it seems like the most likely.
Is there any restart talks there or anything that you might do?
Well, we're going to see. I mean, I've spoken to Putin a lot, and he actually was very nice. He volunteered help on, as you know, on Iran. I said, no, I don't need help on Iran. I need help on Russia. Okay? I said, do me a favor. Help us on Russia, not on Iran. But he was very nice. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk. I think progress is being made. I think great progress is being made on Gaza. I think because of this attack that we made, I think we're going to have some very good news. I was talking to Steve Witkoff, who, by the way, is terrific, and who knows more about this subject than anybody, the subject of what we were just talking about. He was on last night with Jesse and with Laura and with Sean. And boy, Susie, he has a great take on it. He just explains it so easily. He's really very knowledgeable. But he did tell me that Gaza is very close.
Mr. President, just one follow-up on Iran. Both you and Secretary Rubio and Hegseth mentioned the leak. But can you clarify, is the intelligence correct or is the intelligence wrong?
Well, the intelligence was very inconclusive. Okay. The intelligence says we don't know. It could have been very severe. That's what the intelligence says. So I guess that's correct. But I think we can take that we don't know. It was very severe. It was obliteration. And you'd think that a media outlet would say, isn't that a great thing? I mean, more importantly for the pilots, for the military, you take their guts out. You take their absolute guts out. They had a tremendous attack. It was a complete obliteration. The other team, the other group, Iran, said, let's stop this. And you know what? Israel said it too. Very smart. They fought like hell, and then they said, let's stop. And they're going to build themselves. And I really see it as sticking. I mean, we may do papers on it, Marco. Maybe we're going to do papers. I don't even know if you need them. They're not going to be fighting each other. They've had it. They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes. Then it's easy to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes do strong language.
You have to use strong language. Every once in a while you have to use a certain word.
I think we have to join the other Senator.
Yes, we're going to join some other group. Yes, thank you. Katie, one
last question. Do you believe
she's so good.
Thank you, Mr. President.
She used to be very difficult, but now she... Go ahead.
Do you believe that this strike on the Iranian nuclear program will lead to the release of the hostages in Gaza?
I think that it helped a little bit. It showed a lot of power. Yeah, I think it helped. But we're going to get separately, even before this, we were very close to making a deal on Gaza. I think this helped, yes. Okay? Thank you, Kid.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
That's enough for tonight. For the night, you know. For the night, man. I'm gonna call it a wrap. I got work in the morning. I will get my uniform right. Appreciate everybody that came. Yeah, he cracked me up because he called everybody out and he's like, by now everybody should know how he talk. Everything's gonna be gigantic, the biggest, baddest, greatest. Like, that's just how he is. But we gonna talk about that some more tomorrow. You know what I mean? Not at the same time. I'm gonna try to come on a little earlier. You know, depending on what's going on, but I'm gonna knock it out a little earlier. But look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow. Hit the like as y'all exit the building, and I appreciate y'all for coming out.